All right, guys, welcome to our first e-com news hour. We decided to, report on all e-commerce news. This is going to be our first session, and we are going to open it up with something that is, blowing up. And you may have heard about this platform, TikTok, and not just TikTok, but TikTok shops. And I'll be the first one to admit it. When I heard that people are going to be buying on TikTok, I'm like, that's not going to work. Well, we just read an article that was posted, and we're going to share that with you here in a second, and how TikTok shops are starting to, they're starting to dive into or take away some Amazon shares as far as audience and buyers. And, should we be ignoring TikTok shops? I know for myself, I'm starting to get a little interested. And I think after you listen to this, you may also be interested in hearing more about it. And maybe that you can even take advantage of this if you're selling on Amazon. Maybe you want to look into Etsy shops. Etsy shops too. They can take advantage of it. So really what we're doing here is we're seeing, is this something that we should pay attention to? So Chris, why don't you pull up the article and why don't you dig in and distill a little bit of what is being reported?
Yeah. So, Scott, you and I titled this TikTok shops coming for Amazon,
Absolutely.
Etsy, and Shopify sellers. But it's not just them. It's Teemu, it's Shein or however you want to pronounce it, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that has an e-commerce platform, TikTok is coming for you. And they had a few years ago a big integration with Shopify, and they still have a little bit of that. But really, they're trying to build their own platform, which is something other social media companies have done in the past, not so successfully, outside of Facebook Marketplace kind of replacing Craigslist as a thing, at least in the US. And Facebook has a marketplace, and they have the ability to sell through Facebook shops, but nobody really uses it. So this has been the first social media platform that's really started to make the transition. And this article comes to us from Bloomberg, in this case, the Canadian version of Bloomberg. And they started us off with how people are finding TikTok shops and how many people are doing that. And we can see in 2022, it looks like 23 to 25 million people knew that TikTok shops existed. 2023, we're up to around 35. 2024, we're exactly at 36 million people, according to this, right? And these are US buyers based on insider intelligence. And what Bloomberg is reporting is that TikTok is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down to come after everybody that they consider to be competition. And we ran a story a few weeks ago, or a few videos back, I guess, at this point, about how some of these Chinese competitors, right? We talked about Alibaba is doubling down to compete with Teemu. Teemu is doing some things, and we're gonna cover that here in just a little bit, to try to really ramp up their ability to quickly fulfill outside of China orders, so US and European orders. And TikTok is saying, since we don't have the products, what can we do? And so what they are doing currently is they're offering to pay for shipping and cover discounts up to 30% for any sales made through the platform, even though they pay out full price to the seller. And so they're basically giving people a discount as a seller, the similar way that you see on some of the other platforms that are getting rid of seller fees to try to bring people on board. TikTok is doing that. And they are bringing in lots and lots of people. And the other part of this article, Scott, that I wanted to share, and it comes from a different source, this one came from Business Insider, is where this really plays into the headline here, right? And you and I were talking about TikTok shops coming. Well, what does this actually mean for sellers? And this is the thing that really stuck out to me. This is a different article. This one came from Business Insider, but they're looking at the same data. And when they look at the buyer survey, TikTok shops comes in second behind Amazon.
Crazy.
Online customer retention. Now, their definition for online customer retention is they make another purchase within 6 months, right? So they're saying between 5 and 6 months after their first purchase, will they return on the platform? You and I talked a few videos back about Teemu and how we think that's kind of the big weakness right now of Teemu, is that they can't hold on to buyers, and neither can Shein. Right? They see something, they get really excited about the price and what appears to be the quality, and then they either have a bad shipping experience or they have a quality experience, and they don't necessarily return to those platforms. And what we see here is that TikTok Shops is beating everybody. And Scott, you and I have discussed over the last few weeks, Etsy doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling down on trying to turn more single purchase customers into buy and repeat customers. This is exactly why, right?
Mhm.
Etsy here falls at the bottom of the scale of people making purchases every 6 months, right above Instagram checkout, which I didn't even know was a thing, and Flip app,
I
which
know.
I've also never played around with, right? I'm assuming Instagram checkout is the Instagram version of Facebook Shops. And it's not something that people are talking a lot about, but we can see Etsy falls at the bottom of this list, which is why they're so focused on that. But the real concern here is that if we're not paying attention to TikTok Shops, they're offering all of these incentives and they're keeping the customers that buy through the platform. This is their strategy to come and knock out the big dog, which is Amazon. They're already taking on Walmart. They're taking on Teemu. They're taking on whatnot. And they're right behind Amazon in terms of repeat purchases.
So here's a very interesting. Okay, so Whatnot, I don't even know what that is. Okay, so it's another platform that you can make purchases. Never heard of it. Teemu, now they're coming. They're over Walmart, which is insane. But I would like to know in the comments how many of you have purchased something on TikTok. Just curious, if you could drop that in the comments, let us know if you've actually purchased something. Chris, have you purchased something through TikTok? Me personally, I have not as of yet. Have not, but by the looks of it, there's people that are, they're buying through TikTok. I'm just curious.
Yeah. And I don't even have a TikTok account that I'm aware of. I'm sure I created one at some point, right? Downloaded the app, looked at it for 5 minutes, got immediately yelled at when I opened up the app, which is what always seems to happen. And then went, this social media network, probably not for me, right? That was my first old man moment in terms of social media. But there's clearly 35, 36 million people that have at least experienced it in some form or another. And for everybody who's saying I'm not on TikTok, that's okay. But there's millions and millions of people are. And Scott, I don't know what is the TikTok user base. I'm curious. I'm just going to pull that up on the fly here. So 1.7 billion users as of 2023, right? Now, obviously, when we talk about Amazon, yes, they have more purchasers, but if they're competing very closely with TikTok Shops, does that start to shift if TikTok can do some of the things that Amazon has done? Because it's not like you've never had a bad experience with Amazon. Scott, have you ever had something not delivered or misdelivered or came broken? Actually, I know for a fact you have, because I seem to remember you bought a whiteboard that came like 3 times broken because it was a glass whiteboard. And that was a mess, right? And so there's clearly some resiliency in how we will tolerate a platform as long as we have a good experience at the end of the day with the eventual product, or we give them another chance down the road and they meet our expectations at that point. That doesn't seem to be happening with Teemu or Shein, but it does seem to be happening with TikTok Shops. And I'm curious, Scott, in your mind, is the difference that TikTok Shops are not necessarily a Chinese factory? It's more likely to be associated with a real person who actually cares about fulfillment and identifying with their customers?
Yeah. I'll be honest, Chris, like this has piqued my interest. Like, I'm like, okay, should we be doing something with TikTok Shops? Because we're not looking at, like, Teemu is different. And I'm curious also, how many of you who are watching this have purchased something from Teemu? I'm just curious. Drop it in the comments. I've never purchased anything from Teemu either. I know people that have. And that to me is more of a company that is trying to, sell you products through their platform, but it sounds like it's Teemu that's doing all of the push. TikTok Shops, yes, they're pushing the sellers in a sense, but it's not necessarily, TikTok is not selling the products. So that's the interesting thing. Now, I will want to do a little bit more research, and maybe, Chris, we can do a follow-up and really figure out the ins and outs of a TikTok shop. How does someone get traffic on there if they don't currently already have a big audience? Can you go on there with no audience and start selling things and be successful? Don't know. If anyone is watching this and is successful on TikTok, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I would like to know what you have done in order to, be successful on TikTok. But yeah, so I think it's interesting because I do look at TikTok shops very similar to Instagram when Instagram announced that they're going to allow you to start selling, but it wasn't like it was an Instagram shop. At least I don't think so. I don't know if it was tied to the Facebook, your Facebook shop that you can have. But that, to me, that doesn't really seem as though anyone's crushing it with Facebook shops. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just in the dark, and I would love anyone to let me know if I am in the dark. But to me, this story right here has made me say, wait a minute here. Should we be doing something with TikTok shops? Doesn't mean I got to be up doing crazy dances and, all these challenges to try to build an audience. If I can do it in a way that still targets people. So can we run ads? And then from there, can we target specific people? Like, I don't know enough about it, but this has definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah, and I think one of the things people miss about TikTok shops is it is about the influencer, right? And one of the things that TikTok did really well is they said, okay, if you have something to offer, it's very easy to create a viral affiliate marketing campaign inside of TikTok. So even if you aren't the influencer yourself, it's very easy for e-commerce brands to go to influencers and work within the TikTok shops ecosystem to set up your product and go from there. And in fact, our buddy Steve over at My Wife Quit Her Job, Scott, was talking a few weeks ago about someone who's done very, very well there, to the point where they could not keep up with demand, kind of
That's crazy.
back into the Amazon days, specifically because of that. Because what they do is when you're looking at the promotion of somebody, they actually advertise that to other influencers. And they say, look at how much this person is making. Shouldn't you maybe make a post to promote this? And they give TikTok influencers the ability to very easily do that. It's easy for e-commerce brands to hook in. You don't have to build like a separate affiliate tracking thing. You don't have to do any of those kinds of things. So if you have a product that would do well in a TikTok promotional ecosystem, then they make it very easy for both the influencers to find hot products and for the e-commerce brands themselves, once they've gotten something to be successful, to really start to scale there. And the missing piece for most of these platforms, be it Facebook Marketplace, Instagram Checkout, FlipUp, any of these other places, even Etsy, is you have to have that repeat customer thing. And what TikTok has been able to do is separate this is a really cool product from the e-commerce side of it, which is a purchase, right? And say, look, if you like the product, just click here and get it. They've made it stupid simple to be able to do from a buyer perspective, from a seller perspective, and from an influencer perspective. And I think that's part of the reason that they're growing as quickly as they are. And before we move on, because we have a lot more to cover, I wanted to share this as well, Scott. This is something we didn't think it necessarily needed its own, like story breakdown, but I think this is an important conversation to have because it brings AI into this conversation about TikTok shops. And TikTok is currently testing AI influencers for e-commerce, right? So this is something that blew up a few months ago where people are creating purely generated Instagram accounts and getting a lot of followers, right? They're just creating a bunch of pictures in Midjourney or any of the other image generation systems that use something like Stable Diffusion. And they're creating an Instagram account that follows that person, right? TikTok saw that and they went, oh, this is really cool. Maybe we could just totally generate the people and promote whatever products are doing best on the platform, kind of like Amazon Basics, right? Mm. Okay, this is doing really well. We're giving away this chunk. Maybe we could just create virtual influencers and carry this out as well. What are your thoughts on adding this on top of the virality and everything that's going on right now on TikTok?
I think it's interesting. So let me just clarify, and maybe you can help me with this. So what you're saying is you can potentially create an AI influencer, meaning a person that isn't really you and that basically sells the product for you. Is this what I'm hearing, Chris?
Yeah, and that's really what they're trying to do right now. And the article even says, if we dive in here quick and take a look at it, that they don't think that now is the time. And they don't think, at least according to ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok, they don't think it's going to be a replacement for human influencers, but they do think that there's going to be something that happens where it's a great complement. And I think the easiest thing to think about here, Scott, would be, okay, I run a TikTok channel. I could just create an AI version of myself to do all the promotional posts, right? I don't have to sit down and record another 20 videos. And that may be what they're going after. But it appears, at least from this article, that what they're really doing is testing a purely AI influencer to see if they can get it to work and promote on the platform. And for people who are camera shy, or people who have a brand that don't necessarily want to be the face of the brand. And this is one of the questions we get all of the time outside of the Etsy ecosystem, right? You and I get this question everywhere we go when we talk about e-commerce. And they're like, well, you talk about creating content outside of, to put on your own website, maybe YouTube video, maybe I don't feel comfortable in front of the camera. This would be a really cool way to let brand owners not have to hire a giant content creation team, be able to create, their ideal version of themselves as an AI influencer and promote and talk about their products, right? So if that's the angle, is that still an issue? Or is it just the purely like AI generated TikTok is just going to be purely AI at some point? Like that's the concern that people would have. But if we're looking at this from the other angle, which is the enabling brand owners or brand creators to create more content without having to sit down in front of a camera, learn all of the skills that are necessary to do that. They just have to type in a little text to video prompt to be able to create the video version of themselves for their social media channels. That could be a really cool way to promote.
Yeah, it could. I don't necessarily think that would be the best conversions, but I think it definitely could. I think with what I'm hearing also, and again, we won't spend too much more time here. We'll definitely do more research. And if you are watching this and you have experience with the TikTok shops and how everything works, let us know. I know we just had SG Essentials said you run ads to your TikTok shop. You invite influencers to do ads of your products on their channel, and they receive a percentage of sale, 15 to 20%. This controls your cost. So Chris, 15 to 20% is what they're getting as an affiliate commission. Is this accurate?
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, what's Amazon giving nowadays? Like less than 5%, right?
Yes, but you also have the built-in Amazon fulfillment costs. You have all of those kinds of things, right? So if you're selling a product through the Amazon affiliate ecosystem, anybody can sign up to do that. Anybody can sign up to go. And they didn't start out at 5%. You may remember they started out a lot higher than that.
Yeah.
And what TikTok is trying to do is grow both sides of this at the same time. So they're going to give a much higher commission than you're going to get on other platforms.
That's pretty sweet,
it's in
though.
TikTok.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty sweet. So again, so what I'm hearing is you don't have to be an influencer. It will help, but you have to have a quality product, run ads, maybe reach out to some influencers and say, hey, I've got this cool product you might be interested in promoting. And then if they say yes, they do a little TikTok about it. They're going to instantly so for an influencer, they have a huge advantage because now they can just promote a product and immediately make 15 or 20%. And as a shop owner and a TikTok shop owner, I can create one without an audience and tap into other people's audiences very, very easily. And the affiliate program is baked right in to the TikTok shop. So I think that's pretty slick. So anyway, they're coming for Amazon. Are they going to ever take over Amazon, Chris? I don't know about that. Now, I know what we're talking about here. We're talking about, TikTok shop owners are reporting that they're getting more repeat sales, but more repeat sales doesn't necessarily mean more sales in general. So if we were to look right now and say Amazon sales, TikTok shop sales, I still think Amazon is going to be 100,000 miles ahead. And because we're looking at something completely different, is like repeat sales. That's the metric we're looking at. Is that true? Is that true, Chris?
Yeah. And what they're really talking about are repeat customers. And I think the biggest thing to me, Scott, that makes it different from like your Etsy's or whatever is that you're in the TikTok experience. And if you see something cool, then you are likely to buy it versus Etsy, where you have to already be in the buying mood. Right. And this is something I think that Facebook has always struggled with. Even with just Facebook ads, which traditionally worked very well, you were interrupting somebody scrolling through cat pictures to say, hey, check this out, right? Download the 100K roadmap, right? If we were running a Facebook ad for the 100K roadmap that we have for Etsy, right? You have to interrupt what they are doing. In the case of TikTok, for the most part, that video is going to be about that. So if somebody's sticking around to watch that video, then they're at least mildly interested in the product. And if you can connect them with a way to buy that, then you are different. Amazon, the problem that Amazon has is even though they are the go-to destination for product-based searches, you and I both know that the people who are actively looking for a product at any given time in a market is like 5 to 7%. Right? Let's just call it 10% to make that a nice round number. So out of everybody who's into bass fishing, 10% of everybody who's in that niche is actively looking for a new lure, a new tackle box, a new rod, right? The other 90% are somewhere between not going to buy anything that's put in front of them and would buy something if the right deal appeared. And if they're stopping to watch that video, you're then able to take that person from that 90% status of isn't interested in your new lure at all. They see that video on TikTok. They go, oh my God, that guy just caught the biggest bass of his life using that lure. And all I have to do is click this button and it's $7 to buy it or whatever that is. That immediately opens up the number of people that they can sell to. Amazon does not have that capability. So in terms of the number of repeat purchases, what you're doing is you're tapping into the buyer behavior side of this, and that opens up a much bigger market than Amazon has access to, because you only go to Amazon when you fall into that 10% of, I know what lure I'm looking for, or I know I need a new lure. Go to Amazon, type in bass fishing lure, right? So the ability for them over at TikTok to attract customers and repeat customers, they have a much bigger potential side of the market in every niche than Amazon does.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is all good. I mean, Chris, I'm getting excited about this, and I'm definitely going to want to hear more. So again, if anyone has experience with TikTok shops, please let us know in the comments. Even if you're watching this later, we are definitely going to be doing more research, more digging, and finding other people that are successful, because I'll be quite honest with you, like Etsy is great. But if we can take our products that we're already selling and they're successful on Etsy or even mildly successful, and if we can take them with not a lot of work and create a TikTok shop and put them in there and potentially get them in front of an influencer that could promote our product, heck yeah, sign me up. So I'm definitely going to want to look into that, Chris. And I think that that'll be a good follow-up if we can do more on TikTok shops. And let us know, has this been helpful? This is a new format for us. We're doing these on Fridays. This is our e-commerce news for the week. And we're just going to be staying on top of what's happening over the course of 7 days. And we're going to come back here and report the top stories. And this is one of them. TikTok shops are really second to Amazon right now for repeat customers. Moving on to our next topic, Chris, is going to be, yes, Amazon once again, but they are going to be up for a little battle here with Teemu. So let's talk about Teemu versus Amazon and how Teemu is now taking it another step further on top of the billions of dollars that they're spending right now on, ads. Right now, Chris, what is happening? How is Teemu going to compete with Amazon, or how are they trying to give them another punch below the belt?
So, Scott, what is the number one reason you go to Amazon to buy something versus anywhere else on the internet?
I give you a perfect example. I just did this morning. My daughter has a beach volleyball camp. I'm taking the iPad. I don't have a case for it, so I need a case that's durable. So I ordered it. I don't have a lot of time. I need it here overnight. I went there. I'm going to be able to get that by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So shipping. That's the number one, one of the number one reasons I would say is I can get it here within the day and sometimes within a few hours.
And if you go to Amazon, and I just said this, they are the go-to place for a product-based search. When you know what you're looking for, you go to Amazon, and there's two reasons. You know that you're probably going to find what you're looking for, even if it's a weird screw for the bottom of your Instant Pot.
Totally.
Right? Or the fuse. My fuse blew on my Instant Pot the other day. Guess what I did? I went to Amazon, typed in the part number of the fuse, I bought it. Even to South America, I'm going to have it within the next week. Right? And instead of buying a new Instant Pot, I can just replace the fuse and put the bottom back on. If I need a weird part number, I can go to Amazon. It's probably going to be there. But the real reason is shipping and Prime delivery. And that is still the number one reason, even though they have Prime Video and they have all of these extra bonuses that they're trying to give you for being a member of Prime. That is the number one reason people go to Amazon. And Teemu, in direct competition with Amazon, has kind of three major hurdles. The first is market awareness. Everybody knows Amazon at this point. They're getting over that by spending literally billions of dollars on ads. The second thing, and it's something they're going to have to work on, but Amazon struggled with this, they still struggle with this, is the quality, right? All of the initial sellers on Teemu, the biggest complaint people have about Teemu right now is the quality of the products. That's not a short-term solution, right? You have to replace the bad suppliers, bring in new suppliers, work through that whole process. But number 3 is shipping time. And even though they've been able to exploit is now a word, exploit a bunch of different shipping loopholes to bring in products under a few $100s in an extremely fast timeline, 7 to 10 days or less in most cases, because they can use parcel shipping and air shipping to bring things in, and they don't have to go through customs. There's no additional fees. They can get it here in a week or less. But if you need something tomorrow or by Monday, you're probably not going to buy it on Teemu. What's the solution to that? Well, you take more of the Amazon-based approach and you start going after Amazon on speedy delivery. So what Teemu is trying to do is reduce their reliance on warehouses in China by onboarding warehouses in the US that they can directly import into and be able to ship within a few days directly inside of the US. And if they keep their shipments under that I think it's an $800 threshold currently, somebody correct me in the comments, somewhere between like $500 and $800, they'll still be able to bring it in duty free, and they'll be able to offer what they are calling faster delivery. Now, they haven't given a lot of specifics on how fast it is faster, but if you just think about standard US ground shipping, right? If you have 2 warehouses in the US, one in California and one in Illinois, Ohio, somewhere in that area, you can cover the vast majority of the US in a USPS 3 to 5 day window. So you can ship by standard USPS ground, so postal service ground shipping, to like 97% of the US in that 3 to 5 day window, which means they've taken out, number 1, the market awareness with their billions of dollars of advertising between the Super Bowl, YouTube, Facebook. They were, I think, the number 1 advertiser, if I remember correctly, on Facebook last year across the world, because they spent billions of dollars on Facebook ads. Now they're tackling the logistics side of this. The last thing, and I will admit this is the trickiest thing, is going to be the quality, which according to the other news we've seen about Teemu, is the biggest struggle they have in terms of repeat customers in the US and the European markets. So do you think, Scott, that onboarding US warehouses, being able to ship within 3 to 5 days, makes Teemu a bigger threat, a smaller threat, the same threat that we had in the past because they still have the quality issue? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's going to definitely, it's going to remove that one roadblock, right? If you saw, well, it could take up 7 to 14 days, you're like, I don't want to wait that long. And there's such a window there. I'd rather just try to find it on Amazon, or I don't want to buy it. So I think it will increase conversions. Is it going to increase them significantly? Hard to tell. It depends on what you're trying to purchase. But I definitely think it is going to increase conversions from what they are right now. And I think that they're going to improve that. Like, I think if they're investing this much money in just the awareness and building a user base, a customer base, because that's what they're doing. I mean, that's what they're doing. We could get into all the other things that are happening within Teemu, like lawsuits and, collecting data and all of those things. We won't get into that today on this episode, but when news does arise, we will be reporting on it on these Friday Ecom episodes. But I would say they're not done. This is just a start. And if they're going to do this right now and say, we're going to do 2 warehouses, eventually it'll be 4, eventually it'll be 6, eventually it'll be 10. And for some reason, it just seems like they're willing to invest, and they really believe strongly that they're going to be able to compete with Amazon. And so far they have, because there's a lot of people buying on Teemu right now. There's a ton. It's crazy. So yeah, I do think it's going to help them. I do. I think the conversions are going to increase.
Well, and if we think about this, we have to go into the mental way back machine, Scott. But you probably remember way back almost 10 years ago in 2015, when you sold your first product on Amazon, which I guess was technically 2014. How many warehouses were there near you for Amazon? Probably 1.
Yeah, probably 1. Maybe
where they had you ship their product. And again, like, you can cover the vast majority of the US with just 2 or 3 warehouses. Amazon, for all of their even same day delivery in most major cities, they have 300 to 400 warehouses worldwide. right?
Mm.
And that includes them really ramping up the number of warehouses that they have in Europe and in the UK, right? They still don't really have any that I'm aware of in South America, but they're going to start adding some in Asia. I know Amazon Singapore is starting to become a thing, right? They're starting to really encroach on some of the places where they traditionally haven't had that foothold. But if you can imagine taking a few billion of those advertising dollars, once you solve the awareness issue, right? And I just pulled the number up. It was $2 billion on just Facebook ads in
It's
2023 from
crazy.
Teemu.
Crazy.
So let's just say, Scott, we pull that back by half this year. Let's just be conservative. Let's just spend $1 billion on Facebook, right? Must be nice. We take that other $1 billion. That's a substantial number of warehouses. Even if we're paying 50 to 100 million for each of those warehouses to get them up and running, if we're able to fill those with product, that solves a lot of the not necessarily same day needs, but the 2 to 3 day window that most people seem to be okay with. And we see a lot of other e-commerce companies really focusing on this issue because, and if we look at even Scott back at the Etsy buyer survey, and we've known this to be true, but that survey that we did back in 2023 really confirmed this for us, which is price is only a problem in the absence of value, right? Price ranked the lowest of all of the different factors in terms of what influence conversion rate. Shipping speed and order delivery massively outrank that. And so Teemu right now is competing on price and lighting advertising dollars on fire.
Literally,
to bring awareness to the platform. They know, just like Kmart knows, well, now, that competing on price is not usually the best game because there's always going to be somebody who can do it better than you. Right now, China can do that, right? Teemu, Alibaba through AliExpress, they can do that right now. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody that has a slightly better way of doing it, or they find a different loophole, and you're not going to be able to compete there forever. So where are they focusing on right now? Improving that quality by onboarding better sellers, trying to onboard more US-based sellers, and solving that fulfillment issue, which is the bigger sticking point than price for most people. So if they can solve that, then the only thing they really have to focus on anymore is the quality. And if you can go from 3 problems to 1, it makes your life a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, Teemu, they're coming. And I first heard about them like a year and a half ago, maybe it was. And now it's like you're hearing and you're seeing, and some people are up in the air with whether they like it or not. Now, for people that are selling on Etsy or Amazon, a little concerned, and they should be. I mean, I am, because I'm like, they're going hard. So they're either going to force me to have to sell on the platform, or I just have to get really good at building my brand and my customer base, and maybe using a TikTok shop. You know what I mean? Now maybe I need to create a bigger footprint outside of just the Etsy, platform, which, would probably be a smart idea. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely coming. So that also brings me into, Chris, our next topic. What is that topic, and who is that in regards to? And we might have been already talking a little bit about them, but I'll let you kind of tee this one up. You're muted.
Art says, what's a TikTok? It's the opposite of a Tic Tac. It makes your breath worse. No, TikTok is a social media platform, right? And we had some people, Scott, when we started talking about TikTok say, hey, aren't we going to ban them? And the answer is probably not, right? Because even though they did pass some sort of a bill in the House saying you have to be owned by a U.S. company, there's a lot of First Amendment implications there and all of those kinds of things. But it turns out, Scott, that it's not just TikTok that has the people up on U.S. Capitol Hill all up in arms about the unfairness of people being able to sell things less expensively than what you'd be able to get in the US. We have a couple senators who both appear to be on the right side of things, right meaning right politically, not correct necessarily, right? We have Tom Cotton and Marco Rubio, who both penned letters this week to the Biden administration saying, hey, Teemu has a lot of problems, right? There's a lot of complaints about forced labor. They're stealing people's intellectual property. We need to investigate this. And this is not the first time we've seen this. This is the first time we've seen this in the US, but several other countries, including South Korea, who initiated either a letter like this or actually initiated an investigation. I'd have to pull up the article this week about their handling of personal information, right? So there's a lot of things going on right now in terms of legal implications of Teemu. Obviously, Scott, anything coming out of China, the immediate reaction is like, oh, it's junk, which is hilarious because almost everything that comes out of China or everything you own touch China at some point or India at some point in this equation. Yes, there are a lot of low quality products, but they also make a lot of very high quality things, including most of the iPhones, right? And so the immediate reaction is like, oh, it's cheap and it's not fair. But if there's a foundation to the forced labor, I like how the Hill classified that, the forced labor allegations and some of those kinds of things, do you think that makes a difference in their ability to impact the US market? And is there anything the US government can even really do, in your mind, to make that a more level playing field for US based sellers who wouldn't be subject to those concerns anyway? And it's not like Teemu is the manufacturer, they're just promoting the goods. So does it even make sense to go after them? What are your thoughts on, is this going to be effective, and is it the right target?
Yeah, I'm a little confused by the allegations, to be quite honest with you, because like you said, the way that I see it is Temu is a platform. Okay. And is Temu the ones selling the products? Well, yes, you're buying them through the platform, but I mean, Amazon has done it for years. Now they're starting to sell their own, not starting, they have been for years, Amazon Basics. We'll see if you have Temu Basics here coming, soon. But right now, I don't know how they can be at fault other than saying they have to verify that all sellers are getting their stuff manufactured in an ethical way. That's the only way that's the only thing I see here. But them bringing this up, and again, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I say they, the politicians. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying, like, how can we go after the platform if the sellers are independently? It's almost like a subcontractor is working for themselves, even though I'm representing them, I guess. So maybe obviously there's a legal thing there. I'm sure. I'm not an attorney. I have no idea what I'm talking about as far as like legal stuff, but there's probably something there that does state that they are responsible because they are allowing this business to promote these products. Am I correct, Chris?
Well, I know you're not necessarily a political wonk, and most people listening to this probably don't know this, but there's actually a law. It was passed in like 2000 or 2001 called the UFPLA, which bans any importation into the US of products that were created through Uyghur forced labor, right? And if you guys don't know, Uyghurs are an ethnic minority in China that are either, depending on who you ask, in concentration style camps or in, re-education, happy, learn how to be a good Chinese citizen camps. Just depends on who you ask, right? And that is the same allegation against Teemu, is that they are exploiting the labor of these camps to manufacture their products. The problem on the surface level is they don't have manufacturers. They don't manufacture anything that I'm aware of. They work with manufacturers you onboard onto the platform.
Yep.
The complaint, and I think it was in Marco Rubio's letter, was that they don't have a compliance system in check. Now, what would that compliance look like? Do they have to go to every factory to verify that no Uyghur that's in a camp touched the product? Like, or is it just a checkbox? Like, does that does that solve the problem? Because all they're going to do is figure out a way around it if that's really what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And there's the joke that you can import something from China, right? You can import 2 Lego blocks that go together to make one Lego man, right? And as long as somebody in the US puts those 2 Lego blocks to make the Lego man together in the US, it's a made in US product, right? Which is mind boggling to me because it's not, right? It was manufactured in China and then it comes into the US, but they're just going to figure out a way to do that. So does this make a difference? Probably not to Teemu themselves or to Shein or to any of the other people that are.
But isn't Teemu going to have to fight it?
No, because right now they're just letters. Right. So like there's no actual legal implications like there are on the TikTok side, where the House has already passed a bill saying you have to do some of this reorganization if you want to continue to be in the US. Okay. The Teemu side.
Nope, we might have lost Chris. So I am going to switch over now. There he is. You're back, Chris, but a little choppy.
I've been here the whole time. Yeah, so Teemu, doesn't necessarily have that concern. The other thing that both Rubio and who was the other one, Tom Cotton raised was the intellectual property problems. And it's funny to see them going after Teemu for that when Amazon has those issues Etsy has those issues, right? Like everybody has those issues to some extent. So them calling that out specifically feels a little funny to me when there's a lot of US based companies that have those same problems.
Yeah.
But it's something we're going to want to keep an eye on as Teemu is making all of the moves that they are making. There does appear to be at least a little bit of pushback from the U.S. government and a few other governments around the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely things to be concerned with, I would say, but to what degree? I think it's like also you want to ask yourself as a e-commerce brand, because we talk about building brands, right? That brand creators, that's the name of our brand, right? And we're here to help in the e-commerce space. We've been doing e-commerce now for well over 15 years. Built multiple brands, various platforms. We've been on probably all of them. Not the new ones, Teemu is somewhat new, and things like that. But you're always having to deal with these certain things, but you have to ask yourself, do I want my company and my brand to be affiliated with this company that is getting looked at in this light, or that is said to be, hiring slave labor? Like, if that's the case and you're like, I don't want to be a part of that conversation, then you just don't go there. Don't list your stuff on Teemu or TikTok or wherever. Okay. So I think that's the big takeaway for me, is like all of these platforms are platforms to get reach. For us e-com sellers, it's where do we put our products to get attention? And that's what it really comes down to. Ultimately, we'd like to have our own shop, right? Our own Shopify store or whatever you want to run with. And that's our main thing. And then these other things are just legs outside that we're kind of like putting our items, almost if we were going into a physical location. Like if we were like, oh, we're going to go into Target, we're going to go into all the Target locations. It's very similar to that to me. It's where it is like, what can I manage? Number one. And number two, like, does that platform represent, who I want my brand to be affiliated with? And I think that's how I would be looking at this. And again, I don't know everything about Teemu. I don't know everything about TikTok. I'm learning, and that's why we're doing these news bits, because I want to stay on top of it. Right now, since starting this episode, I am very interested in TikTok shops right now. I'll just put it out there. It's something that I want to investigate more. I'm hoping that we have people here that can share some stories or their results or what their experiences is with. But it is something that I want to look into. So we're definitely going to be doing more on that. But Chris, we do have questions and things that came in and some remarks. I do want to address those. I also want to ask if you are watching this right now and you're live or on the replay, thank you. This is a new segment that we're doing here on Fridays, and we're going to do it here for a while and see how it goes. And then we'll come back and see if it's worth doing. I think it will be. So we would like your vote. Is this something we should continue to do? Every week we come on here and we discuss e-commerce in general, not just one specific, not one specific area or not one specific platform, but we really kind of hone in on what is being discussed in the e-commerce landscape, because it's a big one. And there's things happening every single week. And I know Chris and I are talking back and forth about it. So we figured we would just kind of fire up the old live stream here and kind of have at it. So I'd be curious, is this something that we should do more of? Give us a vote in the comments, yes or no. Give us a like if you have found this valuable. And if you do want to stay up to date, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. You can do that with like one click, and that would be awesome. All right. So Chris, let's dig in here a little bit. I want to pull this up here. Anna Mart says, isn't the US banning TikTok? I was just listening to a podcast about all the TikTok people that are very upset because of it. Chris, are they banning TikTok?
Probably not. It's one of those things where the House passed a bill, and even if it passed the Senate, it doesn't necessarily, and is signed by the president, which is how laws work in the US. It doesn't necessarily mean that TikTok would be banned. What the bill is aimed at is making sure that it's owned by a US company and that there's no data transmitted outside of that. And our buddy Carlos said, I have friends in military intelligence, and there's a lot of issues with the apps like TikTok in terms of data transmission and some of those kinds of things. And that really is the main US concern right now. So I don't think it will, one, necessarily pass because there's a lot of implications in terms of the ability to express yourself, which falls under the First Amendment, and a lot of these different kinds of things. And then even if it did, TikTok would just spin off into their US entity, which you may remember, Scott, a few years ago. There was an issue where they said, we're going to ban you unless you use US servers, which they then did. And then it was, okay, but that's still, you're just copying the data then, right? So the US government does not really understand technology that well to begin with. And when they do, they tend to just be playing a game of whack-a-mole. So I don't see TikTok necessarily going away as a social media platform. And even if that law is to pass, there's going to be some ways around it. It is going to be something, obviously, everybody who's a big TikTok influencer is going to say, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Why? Because that gets some views, right? And so why wouldn't you? And they probably haven't read through the text of the bill or have the full understanding of what's going on there. But Scott, with that in mind, right? Let's say it were to pass and they don't have a way of spinning off and becoming, a US entity. Is it still worth looking into TikTok shops in the short term?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to, because honestly, I don't believe that they're ever going to be able to fully ban TikTok. I just don't. But that's just my opinion. Who am I? I don't know anything about how the laws actually work to that degree. But I really personally think there's going to be some things that probably will change, just like Facebook had to change some things, right? We all remember that, like privacy things. Apple had changed things on how data was being collected and what it was going to be, or how it was going to be shared and things like this. So they're going to be evolving to make it safer. What, Chris? What's so funny?
So you probably remember, and this is a great case of the same thing happening over again. I said it a minute ago. The US government doesn't really understand technology. You might remember Mark Zuckerberg got hauled in front of Congress a few years ago when people were like, oh my God, you can target people with Facebook ads based on a single interest, right? What they didn't know is that Google collects way more data, and the Google e-commerce ads now that they have that are purely AI driven are way better and are way creepier in terms of the amount of data that is collected, right? Google has access to every email you've ever written in Gmail, everything you've ever put in your Google Drive, every photo you've ever shared, right? And they have all of this information about you. And yet Facebook got pulled in front of you for the information that they had in front of Congress, for the information they had on Facebook.com and wherever the Facebook pixel was installed, which I forget what the number is, but it was like 10% of what Google had, right? And Google went, all right, now that you guys got yelled at, we know where the line is. Let's just do this thing, right? It's the same thing here. Yes, TikTok is based in China, and whether you want the Chinese government to have access to that, that's more of like a national security question. But like, this information is already out there. Like, everybody has the information. TikTok is not doing anything that's that much more nefarious than what Facebook is doing, Google is doing, right? Like, the government that controls that at the end of the day is really the only difference. And not a huge fan of the Chinese Communist Party, but also, right? Like, we have to think about, from an information perspective, everything that you've ever put on the internet is there forever. And someone already has access to that data. So if that's what we're worried about, maybe they should be more focused on the problem and not today's villain of the week, who is using that data in a new and unique way. Does that make sense?
The villain of the week. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, we need a new Friday session. It's the
we
Friday
need a new
the
villain, the e-commerce villain platform of the week, coming at you live. That's good. All right, let's keep going here. Oh, wait a minute here. Someone says that they can get a food T-ball. Says, I got a way to get the phone number of Silverman, Josh Silverman, that is the CEO of Etsy, which we did a video recently that, we're directly trying to get the attention of Josh Silverman and Etsy headquarters or anyone on the board, because, they're not letting us be heard. They're not giving us any direct access. They're just giving us template canned messages and shutting down accounts for no darn reason. If you guys want to help us out and you haven't done so already, we'll drop a link in the comments. You guys can check that out. Or Chris, we might even have a little banner that we created for our other show. Yeah, let's go right here. There we go. brandcreators.com/speak. And if you go there, like it, comment, let Josh Silverman know that, we want to be heard. That would be awesome if you guys would do that. Let's see here.
Football, which is what I'm going with, says, just drop me an email. Football. I'm sticking with that now. You guys are stuck with it.
Football. Okay, so it's not food. It's not football. It's football.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Football.
Send us an email, support at brandcreators.com. We'll take a look at it and see if it's something that's a potential contact point. Fill More Pockets, which is a brand name I could get behind, says, is that No Bull hat Printify or a Printful product?
Okay. So I'm glad that you brought that up. This is my new hat. This is the new brand that I'm in love with. They actually are
hashtag not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah, hashtag not sponsored, but wannabe. Because I would love some free shoes. No, they started their company, I believe, as a kind of like no bull, let's just go work out. So they started coming out with workout shoes and then apparel. They have a lot of different sneakers, and I actually bought a pair that are super comfortable, very, very breathable. They're just great, and I love them. And so I got that, and I love the brand name No Bull because I am about no BS. I like to just kind of get straight to it and like, let's go. And I like the brand. So bought a hat. Yeah, No Bull, and wearing it proudly. And I I'm going to try to wear this on every e-com news segment here because, well, we're going to give you No Bull. We're going to get straight to it. So there you go. There's the hat. What else we got here? Yeah, we do know that, and was here. Josh is on LinkedIn. We do know that, but he's not active. And we did actually have someone actually post on LinkedIn, and I just did Twitter, actually X. I'm sorry, X. I did that yesterday. I posted on there to try to get some attention. I haven't looked at it yet, but I don't think it's working too well. So I did do that as well, and I put it on Threads too. Hoping that maybe the old at Josh Silverman will get some attention, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. Let's see here. We did have another one here, Chris, about TikTok shops. Oh yeah, right here. What is a TikTok shop, and is it at US only option? So what is TikTok shop right now? It is a shop that you get to sell things just like you would on Facebook, just like you would on Instagram. Isn't shops though, right, Chris? Instagram don't have shops, or is that just connected to your Facebook shop?
Instagram checkout, I think is what they're calling it. It's a Facebook shop and an Instagram checkout.
Right. But TikTok shop is more like your own e-commerce shop. That's how I don't know enough about it, but that's what it is. And I'm hearing really good things about it. So I'm going to definitely be looking into it myself. As far as it being US only, I do not believe so. But someone else did say that they tried to apply, but because they were Canadian, couldn't get opened.
Yeah, which is a little funny because they have Canadian support documentation. But as far as I'm aware right now, it's US, UK, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and somewhere maybe the Philippines. There's a handful of countries where they've rolled it out, and it looks like they're going to be rolling it out to a lot more places in 2024. So our northern neighbors just need to hold on for a little bit. They do have Canadian support documentation, so maybe that's coming.
I tried to open a TikTok shop a couple of months ago, but my store was closed after a few days. The onboarding process is a little confusing. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been through that process. If anyone else has any experience with that, drop it in the comments, and maybe we can learn together on this.
And that's the other thing that popped up a few months ago that not a lot of people covered is, we've covered extensively on this channel talking about the Etsy shop bans, but TikTok shops went through a round where they cleared out a lot of sellers that had either complaints, potential IP infringements, right? It looks like they're trying to avoid that Teemu trap or the Etsy trap, the Amazon trap, right? Of selling either counterfeit or just intellectual property infringing goods. They went through a big round of that a few months ago and banned a lot of people overnight without warning. They pulled an Etsy, as we're going to start calling it on this channel. No, I'm just kidding.
They pulled an Etsy. That's great.
Josh, if you want to clear that up, we can stop calling it pulling an Etsy. But they went after a bunch of sellers kind of in one fell swoop and banned a bunch of shops a few months ago. And they do have some stricter terms of service than a lot of the other platforms do. But as long as you're complying with those, you're probably good to go. One of those things, and I know a lot of people get caught up with it, and they get caught up with it on Amazon and Etsy, is like, oh, well, I'm not in a country that's a platform approved country. So I'm in Canada. I'm just going to put my VPN in the US. And the one time you forget to log into the VPN, or you're using like a regular VPN, not one that you created, and they figure out that IP address is a VPN address, they ban you, right? So just be careful with those kinds of things. If you're not in an approved country, and Emprendedor, I don't know where you're based, but based on the name, you do speak just a little bit of Spanish. just make sure you're not doing any of those things and you should be okay. But they do have stricter terms of service than a lot of the other places like a Teemu.
Yeah. Do you need a Shopify store for a TikTok shop?
Nope.
I do not believe so. I think it's all independent. So I think you just basically have to set up your shop and then load it with some products. And then Chris, I'm curious on the fulfillment, like on that. And again, we won't spend too much time here. We could do a whole, news segment on this and maybe get a little bit more detail, but I'm curious on that as far as fulfillment. Like, is that going to be something that you're going to be able to push to a Shopify store? And then that helps with fulfilling it because then you can connect it to Printify and things like that if you're doing print on demand. Not sure how that works, but if anyone else knows, drop it in the comments if you've had experience in selling product through the old TikTok shops.
Yeah, I believe they have some of their own warehouses, but I think you can also enable third-party fulfillment, meaning you would fulfill it yourself.
Yep.
What I probably wouldn't do if you do have that ability still is to tie that into like your Amazon FBA account, where you're using Amazon to fulfill TikTok orders. That's probably a no-no. But they also, Scott, have direct tie-ins. So even if you're doing everything through the TikTok shop, you can tie it back into your Shopify or into some of your other e-commerce platforms, your BigCommerce, your WooCommerce platform to get that customer sales and purchase data so that you are still getting access to all of that data as that becomes more and more important. You can tie that still back into your shop. It doesn't just go into a black hole like it does some places like Amazon, right? Where they're like, oh, we'll tell you like their name and zip code, but you don't get to know how many times they purchase from you. You don't get to know any of the things that an e-commerce business actually needs. It looks like TikTok, at least for now, is a little bit better with that type of data.
I like Fill More Pockets. That has very on brand for this channel. I agree. And Art says I can use it in the UK. Cool. Elysian says that you need an EIN.
Yeah, so you do have to be a business.
Okay,
that is one of their requirements. It has to be a valid business. And somebody else was saying you can't use a home address, which, you probably don't want your home address going out to everybody anyway. You can probably use a virtual address for that.
Yeah.
It is extremely cheap. Any UPS store, FedEx, FedEx Kinko's, or the local post office, you can get a business virtual address at any of those places. And I'm sure there's a million places online you can grab one too.
Elysian says also got a hold of their support and they said US only for now, but coming.
Yeah, to Canada, probably.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so Phil Moore Pocket says, I'm just starting into TikTok. Shopify has a TikTok Connect feature right in the dashboard. I'm hoping it makes ship integration easy. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see.
Yeah, so they do have two versions of shipping, just like with Amazon, where you have fulfilled by Amazon or what we always refer to as fulfilled by seller, fulfilled by merchant, so FBA or FBM. They're already going after those, and they're basically saying, you have fulfilled by TikTok or fulfilled by sellers, so FBT or FBS, and you can use either of those. And if they follow that Amazon playbook, what they will probably do is treat them equally for now until they realize that there's an advantage to using that fulfilled by TikTok. They can charge you some of those logistical fees, be it the shipment fees, the storage fees, all those little nickel and dime things that people don't account for in their e-commerce businesses. Once they realize how much money there is to make on that, they'll probably favor that fulfilled by TikTok side of the world.
Yeah. Zach says 600 sales in my first 3 months on Etsy. Awesome job. I want to gain more exposure with Shopify and TikTok shop. Any suggestions? I think it's going to be down to preference. Like if you start building out your Shopify, it's going to take time and learning how to get traffic. Like you just have to be okay. And honestly, I'm a fan of that. I think that's a great model. I think if you're not building your email list, that would be step one. Step two would be then let's start building out the Shopify store and at least get your products ported over from Etsy. That's the order I would probably go in. Once you get your products ported over to Shopify, you feel like they're kind of safe there because that way, if something happens to your Etsy shop, you're not going to have to then re-upload and reconnect everything. It's already going to be done for you. And the email list is going to help you drive your own traffic to Shopify if you choose to do so. The TikTok shop thing, I think, would be the next step in that if you were to do that. That's my suggestions on that, Zach.
Yeah, I think I would go Etsy, Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever you want to build your platform on, and then look at another marketplace, which is more how I'm treating TikTok, because it's a place that's bringing traffic, right? It's already doing that. But if you get your Shopify set up, then you should be able to port from Shopify to TikTok shops a little bit easier. And you're setting that foundation in case TikTok does something silly or the government does something silly and, bans TikTok entirely or whatever. That way we're not going from marketplace to marketplace. We're building something that we own before we go look at another platform. And with an app like Vela or wherever else, we can get that Shopify store set up in like a day or two. And then if you don't want to master building the traffic right now, you could immediately then, let's say Monday, because this is Friday, turn around and get the integration set up with TikTok shops and start looking at how to do.
And Chris just froze again. So we'll see if he gets reconnected here. There he is. He's back again.
Yeah, I'm not disappearing on my side. So,
well, I think you are. Guys, let us know in the comments if it's just me or if Chris is freezing up on you guys. We'll see here, Chris.
I'm sure it's on my side, but StreamYard is showing me and you.
He disappeared.
Yeah.
You're here now. Okay. Veronica says you do have 3 days to ship though in the TikTok shop. Okay. Let's see here. They let me set up the entire store before they told me no. Well, that's no good. We got to fix that, TikTok. Let's see. SK Designs. I have TikTok shop and I have my Shopify connected to my TikTok shop as well. Currently have Shopify items turned off from there until I can select items I want on there because not all on or okay with TikTok. Got it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think the other question I know we're going to get is like, what do they charge? And it's somebody corrects me in the comments if I'm wrong, but the last time I looked, it was 6%, basically across every category. So it's not like you're going to make a whole bunch more than you make on Etsy or anywhere else. It's just a nice place to be able to start backing up and have another place to tap into people. And if it is better from a customer retention standpoint than Etsy is, or a repeat purchase standpoint, then that's really interesting to me. And the one piece of data that they didn't cover in that survey that we shared, Scott, was, is it buying from the same TikTok shop or just from TikTok shops? And that would be the thing that's really interesting.
That would be.
Because when we look at the buyer survey data from last year, people who bought from you once on Etsy were extremely likely to buy from you again. And if they bought from you twice, they were almost as likely to buy from you 6 or 7 times as they were twice. So if you can get people over that hurdle, that makes a real difference on a platform like Etsy. The question that I would have is, given the way that TikTok promotes TikTok shops, which is through either your account or other influencers promoting your product, does it have the same effect on those repeat purchases? We know they're better at getting the repeat purchases from wherever, but what we don't know based on the data that we shared earlier is if they are better at keeping it within that one shop because of how it's promoted.
Yeah. I do want to bring up something here. So Dahl says on any social media, you can just send people to your Etsy without doing anything but social media. That is true. But then Zach came in and said, I've been posting almost daily on Instagram and TikTok for the last 3 months and don't receive much exposure views from these socials. And yes, that is accurate. A lot of times you are going to be spending a lot of time, not necessarily money, but time could be considered money depending on how much your time is worth. And you're not going to receive a lot of exposure because we're relying on organic for those types of social media strategies. That's why we prefer building the email list. Okay. It doesn't matter if we're talking about TikTok shops, Etsy, eBay, Amazon, Shopify. It doesn't matter. The email list is, to me, the one thing you should be building. I would do that way before I would say, go start building something on TikTok organically. I would rather see you take your time and build the email list. And then if you want to send your email list to TikTok, your TikTok shop, you can, right? But then you have that asset. That right there is going to give you way more leverage and way more just benefits than posting every single day on TikTok or any of these other platforms.
Yeah, and I think the power of something like TikTok Shop or social media in general is not that you can build a following there, because if we look at the metrics around return on investment for time and money that social media brings in for e-commerce brands, it's nowhere near where we are with email. The one thing I think people would run into is, Scott, do you have a TikTok account?
I do.
So do you have the app?
I do on my phone. Yeah.
Okay. If you don't, it takes you to the website and then they kind of force you to log in. There's a button somewhere on the page that's there.
You barely can log in though. Yeah. I don't think they make it where you almost have to download the app.
And so it really is geared, unlike sending traffic to Etsy or Amazon or your own e-commerce store, it really is geared for people who are already in the platform. And I think that virality and that rabbit hole is one of the reasons that they do get the repeat customers that they get, and the fact that they're existing outside of the traditional marketing cycle. But if we have that email list, then we can send it wherever. And that brings up the question from Elysian Workshop, who says, with getting more into Shopify, TikTok, etc., do you keep your other email list manager? He's referring to Everbee here. Let me be honest, Everbee's one is great at what it does, but it's still very early beta. And I know one of the things that they're talking about is rolling out a few more integrations to some of the other platforms that Etsy sellers use, like Shopify. Whether they're going to integrate directly with TikTok shops, any of that, we don't know yet. But if that data is coming back into Shopify, which you can do through TikTok shops, then if they're integrated with that, it would roll into Everbee as well. But regardless of where you're keeping that email list, that is the thing. And Scott, we've made this point probably 500 times on this channel. Email is the #1 return on investment platform for e-commerce marketing, hands down. Somewhere between 38 and 72 to 1 return on investment for email marketing. And all you have to do is sit down, write a few lines and send a message, or use ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, any of the AI models to write the email for you, and then just send it out to your list and let them know you have something on sale. Focus on that before you focus on non-evergreen social media. If you want to go after social media marketing, rather than spending the time to build your own channel, follow the TikTok model. Go after those influencers, man. They already have the channel. They have the eyeballs. As long as it's a fit for you and your brand, it's a heck of a lot less effort than trying to build the same following that somebody else already has.
Yeah. And Zach asked, how do you build the email list? I'm glad you asked. We actually have a resource for that. If you just drop in the comments, put email in the comments, and we'll send you our guide. We have a guide. It works for Etsy. It works for building a list for Shopify. It doesn't really matter. We did build it with thinking of Etsy in mind, but this is the way that we've built lists for the last probably 10 years. And that's the way that we continue to do it. So there's some email marketing tips in there as well. So if you want that guide, just drop email in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right. But yeah, we're not going to go into that on this episode, but if you do tune into any of our other videos that we post on this channel, you'll find some. There's an email playlist that shows you some examples on how we're using these strategies to drive traffic and drive sales. So I would definitely make sure that you check that out. Also, another little reminder that you should probably like this video if you've gotten any value to help us in the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel. So there you go. All right. And Chris, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. But I did want to say, yeah, okay. Dahl says that it's funny. It always baffles me how email works since everyone gets too much email. LOL. Yes, I agree. But email still works. I mean, for brand creators, I send out 3 emails a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And those emails are typically not sales emails. What they are is what we call hybrid emails, is where I give a piece of content that is basically helping, and then there might be something in the PS. Or if you go to that piece of content, there's a way that you could potentially buy something. So that's how we do it. Now, I'm not saying we don't do promotions. If we're doing maybe we're doing a live training and we're charging for it or something like that. Yes, we do that. And it works very, very well. So if we're doing Etsy and I'm going to be doing a launch, we are going to use email to launch that product so we can get a bunch of sales very, very quickly. So it wouldn't matter if I was doing Shopify, if I was doing Amazon, it's all going to come down to using that email list to leverage it and just continually, email in a good way. Again, we don't do it salesy. We do it in a way that it doesn't feel salesy. Okay. It's just connecting and letting people know we're here. This is what we're doing. And we're doing something special this weekend, or we just made some new items. You should go check them out. That type of marketing. All right. So Chris, anything else? Oh, you wanted to share something else. Okay. There you go.
50% of people buy from marketing emails at least once per month. If you're emailing less than 5 times a week, you're going to get higher open rates and click-through rates. That depends massively on the market, but that comes from get response. 60% of e-commerce and consumer goods and service companies personalize emails based on past purchases. That was almost double what it was in 2019 from 2020, right? 8 out of 10 people click that welcome email because they want to get something out of it. And 8 out of 10 people will open a welcome email, generating 4 times as many opens and 10 times as many clicks as other types of emails. And then this one, Scott,
abandoned carts,
ultimate for e-commerce, 70%, 67 to 70%, depending on who you ask, of all e-commerce carts are abandoned at one point or another. Somebody puts something in their cart, they never come back to buy it. It is 3 times more likely to convert than other automated emails. And it is the number one way to use email if you have the ability to send that abandoned cart email, because you say, hey, you sure you didn't want this? And people go, oh, darn, I did, but my cat spilled milk on my keyboard and I got distracted, or my son walked in the room, or my dog started barking, right? Whatever it was, they forget to come back. That type of an email really drives that 36 to 72 to 1 return on investment. So don't sleep on email.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And once again, if you guys want that free email guide of ours, just put email in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a guide. Even if you're watching this after this live stream, we'll go ahead and make sure we look at the comments and we get you a copy of that. All right. So Chris, I think that's going to wrap up our first e-commerce news hour. This is going to be happening on Fridays at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. So make sure that you tune in. And if you want, well, some Etsy news, well, we do a lot of that stuff on our Wednesday episode, but we also talk about strategy and just more things to get traffic, get sales, and what's happening in that world. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do so. We'd love to have you. And if you want to like this video to help us get a little more reach on it, that would be amazing as well. And if there's anything that you want us to talk about, if you want us to talk more about TikTok shops, you want us to talk about more about Shopify, more about email list building, you let us know and we'll include some of that here that is not directly just one focus. It'll be more of the news items that we're kind of pulling up, and we'll kind of start paying attention to more of that if that's what you want to see. All right. So let us know. And yeah, let us know what is one thing that you took away from this, this little news segment. What's one thing? What's one thing that you're going to take away that you're going to maybe apply to your business? We'd love to know. All right, guys. So that's it. That's going to wrap it up. Have an awesome, amazing week if you're watching this while it's live. And if not, well, just have a great day. All right. We'll see you guys. Take care. Take action. Talk to you soon.